Hello everyone, Moose Torrent here, and the network test for Fortnite Rain is over, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit before the game comes out. If you're not familiar with Night Rain, it is a roguelike, not a Souls-like. You don't worry much about stats. You can run as fast as a horse. You can climb just about anything, and you don't take fall damage. These changes are in line with the game because you're on a timer. You have a brief day cycle to run around and fight stuff and level up to boost your stats before night comes and a ring of blue flame forces you to a certain spot on the map. Of course, there will be a boss here. And if you beat it, you get loot and you level up and the cycle will continue. We don't know how many stages there will ultimately be in the final game, but the network test had 3. It seems like this will just be a fun game to play and fight bosses with your friends. And ultimately, the fact that you have to play it with 2 other players is kind of my biggest issue. I, of course, will be able to find friends to play it with. I'm sure it won't be that much of an issue, but people's schedules don't always align. Stuff comes up. Maybe on a random morning you have some time to play and nobody's around, and you just you don't want to worry about seeing if people are around. You just want to play it because you got some spare time. I don't know why they don't have a single player option. I think that'd be something really cool they could do, considering there's so many spirit summons in the base game. That could be something you unlock playing through, as well as the other little stat boosts you can get in your character's 3-slot thingy. It could be that, certain classes get certain summons. I always liked using the Crystallian with the Sorcerer, because while he doesn't do that much damage, he is an absolute tank. He can tank so much damage while you're just sitting there in the background, blasting people with sorceries. And I just think it'd be so cool to do that, and every character class gets their own little summons, and you could go through and work on strategies yourself without having to worry about affecting other people's gameplay. Now, of course, you can also not use a password and just play with randoms. And this is how I played the entire network test. I never used passwords. I just played with randoms. And while I didn't have any of the network issues, the disconnects people were talking about, I did have people just quit because we weren't together. So like the random characters, people not working together, that was a nightmare. So it was like we'd start, we were together for like the first area, and then everyone would just go their separate ways. I try to stick with somebody, but if 2 people are going different directions, and you're trying to stick with one, and then there's always one guy by himself no matter what. For some reason, he never comes back to the group. And then he would just quit. And then we're in a game with difficulty designed for 3 people, and there's only 2 of us. Maybe there's something they could do to add an NPC in or a spirit summon if someone quits, even if they don't add like dedicated spirit summons for single player. Because a disconnect is going to happen probably every once in a while regardless. Even if it's not a network issue, what if someone's dog jumps on the cord and pulls something out? I don't know. There's always something that's going to come up randomly every once in a while and mess stuff up. So I think they should have some kind of way to help you out if there is a disconnect on your team. But that really wasn't even the main issue. The main issue I was having was there's no teamwork. Maybe because we weren't mic'd up or whatever the reason. And we would just fall apart. So, like, even if someone didn't quit, we're all at a separate spot on the map. And the group of two, we're definitely going to do better than the guy by himself. But the difficulty is still for 3 people in the same spot fighting an enemy. And maybe if you're a higher level, that's not going to matter as much, but the network test, it really didn't pan out very well for me. I think I only had 2 good runs, like, the entire time. And I only beat the final boss once. And it was on my very last attempt. Honestly, my other second best attempt was my first attempt, which was the first network test, and we kind of stayed together for the most part. We weren't necessarily together the whole time. We were all kind of trying to get our bearings, it seemed like. But we made it to the second night boss, and he was nearly dead. He had like 5% of his health left or something. And I went down. And all they had to do was hit him a couple more times and he would have died. But they wanted to come and revive me, which is nice. I appreciate that. But while they were trying to revive me, good old Centipede Demon jumped on them and killed them both. And my jaw dropped. I was like, I can't believe we were that close. And the Centipede just blasted us. And every other run in between that first one and the last one was pretty nasty. There were a lot of times when I would just be chilling with one guy because the other dude quit. You'd be going through, and then I would be fighting some guy, and I'd think he'd be with me. And then after I'd kill somebody, I'd turn around and he would just be going the other direction, and I'd be like horse speed sprinting across the map trying to catch up to him. And then one time that happened and the second guy quit, so I was just in there by myself. And I was like, well, let me just mess around and kind of get a feel for the game. It's pretty rough by yourself. It feels like a nightmare challenge mode or something. And it's not very fun. So that's kind of how my experience was 80% of the time. I'm not sure exactly how many matches. I'd guess 10. And only 2 of them were good. And that's kind of why I'm saying it needs a single player mode or a single player kind of option with summons, or NPCs would even be good. Honestly, if they're gonna bring back the old bosses, imagine if we got Solaire to help us, or Kirk, or Black Iron Tarkus. Because, you know, the random player you're gonna get is gonna be some 12-year-old or somebody trolling, trying to mess up your game. Somebody like
the loathsome Dung Eater.
So I hope they add an option for single player, but I don't really think they're going to, honestly. This doesn't seem like a game they're really going to focus on a lot. They'll probably spend less time on it than Armored Core 6. And they didn't really do a DLC for that. They have done a bunch of balance patches. which I appreciate. They added a handful of new parts, which I did appreciate. I like pretty much all of them. And then they kind of just stopped. They did another balance patch after that, actually, now that I think about it. A couple. But I want more for Armored Core 6, but that's beside the point. Armored Core 6 was a full price game. This is a $40 game. So I just don't see them putting a bunch of extra time into it to add that single player option, even though I would love it. But I did have those couple good games with the random players, so maybe it won't be that big of an issue just playing with randoms. I'm assuming people are going to get a feel for the game after a couple days of it releasing. And just like always, they'll fall into a rhythm and everyone will kind of start playing the game better. But even on that last game where I beat the network test, it was really weird. The mage on our team went off by herself. I was once again given the task of choosing who to stick with. They split up. I was like, I'll just pick this person. Sticking with my other teammate with the greatsword. And I don't know what was going on, but this mage was single-handedly taking down bosses on the other side of the map with just the craziest spells I've ever seen. Like, we did come into contact a couple times. Every time we had to fight a boss from the blue ring would funnel us together. And she would do, like, 60% of the damage by herself just with these spells. So, I don't know if there's going to need to be balancing. Is the sorcerer overpowered? I don't know. I only used her a couple times. I thought it was a really cool setup. I liked how the controls are a little bit different with the items. Well, that's not necessarily a sorcerer thing. But it felt like I was doing so little damage and my teammate was doing so little damage, and then there was just the mage. So if that is how the game is designed and she didn't just get like a lucky roll or something, I hope they change the balancing to make the melee characters do a little more base damage, and it's not all about like you're a tank and the mage does most of the damage. I do want to talk about the item usage a little bit, because I do like the new streamlined way they have the items set up. You just press down on the D-pad to cycle through your items, and up will use it, whichever one is lined up. So you can kind of scroll through them and use them a little bit easier, which is nice. The Estus is no longer an item. It is its dedicated square button, so you're not fumbling through your items to get to the Estus. You can have an Estus at the ready and a firebomb at all times, ready to go. And I think that works a little bit better than the normal Soul setup. But that does mean that your catalysts, your talismans, only have 2 spells now, light attack and heavy attack, because before you would hit up on the D-pad to cycle through your spells. Now up just uses an item. And I don't know how I feel about just having 2 spells. I think it works for the roguelike it is. You can have multiple staffs, multiple talismans, so you can have a talisman with 2 miracles on it to cast, swap to a staff to cast 2 spells if you want. You can have another staff with a fire spell and a lightning spell if you need a different elemental damage. So it's not that big a deal how it's set up, And since there's no equipment weight, it's decent. Although, I think if you had the ability in, like, a main Souls title to do items like that, and then when you're going to cast a spell, you hold down R1 and press triangle, or hold down R1 and press square, hold down R1 and press circle, or X, or maybe even L1, L2, and you can cast a specific spell by a multiple button combination. I think maybe Harry Potter did that. I can't remember. I believe that's how they did it. It's been a while since I played that game, but it was nice being able to pick your spell and do a button combination instead of having to scroll through a list of spells to cast. So the items, how they're set up, is kind of making me have faith that we're going to get some better spell casting in the future. Maybe. Overall, though, I think the game was mostly not fun, but I think it will be fun in the future. But I might just be thinking that because it's a From Software game. I don't even think I would buy this game if it wasn't made by From Software. I just have a lot of trust with them that they're going to do something good, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here, even though it feels like I'm playing a really weird Fever Dream mod of an Elden Ring and Dark Souls roguelike mashup. But I'm going to leave it here. Let me know what you guys think. This is Moose Tort. See ya.
It hurts. Oh.